When I play Minecraft, I generally think of myself as a redstone guy. This would come as no surprise to anybody who has watched any of my previous videos, but with this being said, I think I'm at least decent as a builder. I could use some work with some common techniques like gradients, block choice, and thinking of your blocks as colors instead of materials, but I feel like I can make some interesting shapes at least, like these caves and rocks I've probably been showing footage of. Unfortunately, thinking about and building shapes like these has made me notice things that I haven't seen talked about a lot, minor inconsistencies that don't really matter all that much, but bother me enough to make a video where I talk about rocks. I also just wanted to talk about an aspect of the game I don't really talk about all that much, state what I would like to see put in the game, and I thought it could be fun to try it, so here we are with this video. To help illustrate my problem, I decided to put together a fancy chart for all the rocks we're looking at. It has a space for the base form at the top, and a lot of spaces for variations that a lot of different rocks have, going for polished, smooth, cobble, and bricks. On the right is space showing off if all these variations can be turned into slabs, stairs, and walls, since those are very common across different rock types and variations. I also put a space for chiseled versions on the far right because I felt like it and it's my chart. So if you disagree, is my chart. Make your own chart. There's also a row on the very bottom, separate from everything else, that I added to highlight any block variations that are more unique to specific rocks, as well as variations that didn't really fit in with the rest of the chart. With the explanation taken care of, though, it's about time we show it in action. Our first rocks, what I probably use the most when I'm building. They're pretty common, have a lot of variations to each of them, and they're what I would think of when I think good amount of variation and stuff. We got tough stone, deep slate, and blackstone. Looking at these charts, you should be able to see what I mean when I compliment how many ways you can use these things. Starting with stone, we have lots to talk about, partially because it's our first rock, partially because it's stone. Looking at just the top row with all the basic stone things, I already have something to complain about though. Why is there no stone wall, basic stone wall? I've shown you my fancy shaped builds, and there have been several times that I would have loved to have stone walls, whether it be in the side or corners of a cave to add depth, or the floors or ceiling to emulate stalagmites and stalactites. I would have just loved stone walls, and unlike many of the gaps in these charts, I can't justify this lack of stone wall in some way. The best I can do is just we have stone brick wall, but I don't like that explanation, so we're going to brush past it. Anyway, looking past that first mini rant, we can move past the empty row for polished stone and into the row for smooth stone. Interestingly, smooth stone only has slabs as variants, no stairs or walls. These slabs are also special because they are the only slabs, as far as I know or remember, to look different when stacked than the block they came from. It makes sense for a lot of slabs to just reuse the full block texture, like with normal stone or cobbled deep slate or wood planks. But with the blocks that have a bit of an outline, like the polished blocks and this smooth stone, I think it could be nice to mimic what smooth stone has going on here with the little outline interrupt in the middle. Going down the list, we have cobblestone next up. Honestly, no notes. Cobblestone has the main three variations I'm looking for in a block. It's nice as a transition from the smoothness of stone to a more rough look. It's nice. Basically the same stuff for stone bricks too. Good variations, nice showcase of our first chiseled block, which is just generally a nice option to throw in there. I wish the square rings on it were properly centered, but whatever. As for the special stuff, mossy cobble and mossy bricks are both really nice to have when adding some green and helping transition into more lush blocks like leaves or moss. Cracked stone bricks are also here. Buttons and pressure plates, I have another little rant for that. I'll get back to those, just keep those in mind. And that is our first rock done. Fortunately, they won't all take that long, but unfortunately I front-loaded this video pretty heavily, so these next few will probably be fairly lengthy as well. As for what's actually coming up next, it's tough. I love tough. It's got a really nice color to it, it's not that hard to collect a lot of, and as for variations, it's got them. Polished tuff works well as a slightly darker counterpart to polished andesite. Tuff bricks work well as a slightly darker counterpart to stone bricks. I just wish I could make smooth tuff for blending with normal stone. I don't know if it's just me, but the texture on regular tuff feels too rough to blend super nicely with regular stone, which is why I think a smooth tuff could work well. Otherwise, though, it's the only block with two different chiseled forms, so that's a little interesting tidbit. I really thought the tuff section was longer. Huh. Anyway, being found in a similar place to tuff, in a much higher abundance, we have deep slate. Deep slate has by far the most variations of all the blocks I'm talking about today, so I'll try to be fast. Polished deep slate bricks, cobbled deep slate, they're all great, all phenomenal. I love the deep slate family. I use them very often when building. They're really nice. Regular deep slate doesn't have any slabs or stairs or anything, but regular deep slate can also be placed with different orientations, so making regular deep slate slabs and stairs could be a bit awkward because of that. I get it. I would like to once again propose another smooth variation because I love the smooth variations. That way you could do slabs and stuff as well as have a more pleasing texture than regular deep slate because honestly I'm not a huge fan when I'm building all my caves to have the deep slate texture on there. It's usable if you're doing, like, buildings or something, but I'd prefer other things in some situations. They have a nice dark color to them, and it gives a bit more variation to and brightness to the deep slate family, though. I'm not bashing on regular deep slate, it's just that I prefer a lot of the other deep slate blocks because they're so good. Of course, if you want even darker blocks, you can make use of blackstone. It also has some nice looking variations to it, like polished blackstone and polished blackstone bricks. Another block I have no notes for. I like chiseled blackstone having a piglin snout. It's cute. And gilded blackstone is a fun addition. It makes sense because the nether's full of the gold, and gilded blackstone is where the piglins are. I do want other blocks to take some notes, though, because blackstone has pressure plates and buttons. The only other rock that I've covered so far that has these two is stone, and spoiler alert, but nothing else past here has them. This is really upsetting for me because buttons can be used for really nice pebbles to add texture and help smooth over transitions from one rock to another. What if I want to make a tough button? What if I want to transition using tough buttons? Also, having more options for different stone type buttons and pressure plates would genuinely be really nice to fit them into different build styles. In case you didn't know, stone buttons have slightly different functionality than wooden buttons because wooden ones stay pressed for 1.5 seconds and can be pressed by arrows, while stone buttons only stay on for 1 second and won't be affected by arrows. Pressure plates are similar, where wooden ones can be activated by any entity, while stone ones react to more specifically mobs. These are minor differences, I know, but I think it really sucks that if you specifically want the functionality of a stone button or a stone pressure plate, you're stuck with one of two options, while if you're using wood buttons or wood pressure plates, you get like 12 of them just because you're using wood instead of stone. I think this inequality is suck, and I do not like it. Anyway, we can move on to some other rocks that can be covered in a much faster fashion. Chief among these are the rock triplets granite, diorite, and andesite. They're all similar enough where I can cover them all at once. First off, why is there no polished wall for any of these? The best I can think of is these polished blocks have a little grid outline that would screw with how the wall looks, but it still bothers me that there's nothing here because I had an experience recently where I wanted to use one and it just didn't exist, and I was like, wow. Apart from that, some bricks and smooth versions could be nice, andesite especially. I really like polished andesite, and I appreciate how regular andesite has a feel of being slightly lighter than stone, but again, it has a certain amount of roughness that turns me away from it, so I generally struggle to use andesite a bit. Luckily, the sandstone duo does not share this problem. That is probably unique to me. Sandstone and red sandstone are two of the few blocks that you can make smooth versions, and I love them for it. These smooth guys are what I would want to see for any theoretical smooth additions in the future, although preferably with a wall added in. Unfortunately, being smooth is all they've really got apart from being cut, which is fairly nice. I do think I prefer cut sandstone to regular sandstone, but overall, both sandstone have some ways they could improve. I love sandstone for the smooth versions, though. Finally, for this little section, I wanted to talk about endstone. I don't use it often, if at all, because of its color, but it's certainly not helping itself with its block selection. If it had a smooth version, it might work well alongside sandstone and other light blocks, but generally I don't know how much it could be fixed. It's kind of a gross color. Of course it's got uses, everything has uses, but this one has significantly less uses than like deep slate, for example. And for our final little section of the video, we have some cleanup rocks. Some are massive disappointments, and others I was debating even including because I was just deciding on the fly what I counted as a rock. I didn't have a real criteria. I just kind of went off of vibes. As an example of this, prismarine. I don't really know how many people think about if this is a rock or not, but I decided to include it here. I like what it has going for it. I think the bricks being a unique shape is a nice touch, and dark prismarine is really cool. But as usual, I feel like there could be more here. It does overlap a bit with oxidized copper, though. It has a nice synergy with it, so I'm not complaining too much about prismarine. I think it's fun that you can use copper and prismarine and have it blend together well. I was also debating on whether or not I should talk about packed mud, but I decided to let the guy into the video because I really love him and I want it to be known. Packed mud is so nice for dirt paths and not just general dirt style vibes because of its color and texture. So it's hugely disappointing to me that normal packed mud does not have slabs or stairs. To get those, you would need to turn it into bricks, but that loses out on a lot of the fittingness that I feel the texture has, a lot of the natural vibe. I would also complain about the lack of smooth here, but while building with packed mud, I found that of all things, brown mushroom blocks are a perfect match for packed mud. And honestly, I love that. Lack of partial blocks is still annoying, but it makes more sense with the mushroom blocks due to their unique inside texture thing going on. And I love how brown mushroom is a really good match for packed mud for some reason, so I can let it slide. And finally, I've got three more rocks to cover that are all disappointments of the utmost caliber: basalt, calcite, and dripstone. They all have so much potential, yet they have issues that stop me from enjoying them to their fullest. Firstly, the most obvious issue here, these things have no variety. These things eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for every single meal of the day. They've got no spice to them, no fancy shapes. This can make them really hard to work with at times. They're not all bad, though. Basalt having the most variety makes for some good pillars, and smooth basalt is a good fit with deep slate and mud for those darker tones. Calcite, despite having nothing to its name, it's something I find myself trying to use because it's got such a nice texture to it. Nice and smooth, nice and bright, feels kind of round. I love this block. Dripstone I've got the least good to say about, but even so, its color goes well with packed mud and rooted dirt. I just wish I had more variations on these, like smooth dripstone, partial block calcite, partial smooth basalt. I want these so I can make the full use of the positives I see in these, but until then, I can't do my fancy shapes. I'll work them in wherever I can for minor color variations, but I don't have a good way to wrap this off. Uh, rocks. And that's all I've got for talking about rocks for now. I got a lot to say while I've got you here, so I'll try to be quick. First off, thanks for watching all the way to the end. I do really appreciate it. If you have any feedback, especially considering this is a different style of video than I usually do, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Second off, I'm sorry my video uploads have slowed down a bit. I am in college, and the work has picked up since we're near the end of the semester, so I've been focusing on that a little more. I did get a 70 out of 70 on my most recent Calc 3 exam, though, so it seems to be paying off. If you wanna hear me talk about math, again, comments are open. I can talk about math. Third and finally, it's not super relevant here because it's a different kind of video than I usually do, but I wanna do my normal sign off thing anyway, so have fun doing some redstone.